Chances are when you started the year, you had big, bold goals for your finances. But you might find that where you are now doesn't look anything like where you thought you'd be. So, today I want to talk to you about how you can get your finances back on track starting right now. Hi, I'm Scarlett Cochran. I'm a lawyer and a wealth expert, and this is One Big Happy Life, where we help you find balance, build wealth, and live happy. Everything that you need to create the life that you want. So, today we're going to be talking about how to get your finances back on track when they've maybe veered off course. And this can happen for many reasons. So, one, maybe you didn't have a money plan to begin with. You had a vague idea about where you wanted to be, what you wanted to accomplish, but you didn't sit down and figure out the actual nuts and bolts of making that a reality. And oftentimes, having that vision for what you want is a great idea, but at some point you've got to sit down and you do have to come up with a plan on the how. And when you have that plan is your guidepost for making sure that you are on track. But when you keep your plan very vague, then it makes it more likely that as time goes on, you won't actually be on track because you didn't have markers to help you hit it. Another thing that can cause your finances to go off track is financial burnout. So this can happen when you've created a financial plan that's very aggressive, that causes you to cut your spending to the bone, to change too many things all at once, basically a plan that's not sustainable. So you do it for a while, but then you get burned out and frustrated. And so that can have the effect of putting you in a place where you don't even want to see your plan or look at your plan. And in fact, you might want to indulge more than you otherwise would have because of a long period of deprivation where you were trying to willpower your way to making a financial plan work. Another thing that can cause you to go off track is just life happening, the unexpected happening. Maybe some expenses caught you off guard. Maybe there was a whole pandemic and that shifted your financial plan drastically. Or maybe things just didn't shake out the way that you thought they would. Or maybe you just needed more time and space and grace and money in order to meet the demands that life placed on you at a particular period of time in your life. Those kinds of things happen. In fact, managing your finances is not about doing things perfectly. It's not about your financial plan always going exactly the way that you thought it would. It's really about an ebb and a flow. And there will be periods where you are spot on in everything that you expected to happen in your life and spot on with your spending, spot on with your savings. And then there will also be times where you don't quite get there. And so I just want you to let you know that both of those experiences are totally normal. So you don't need to beat yourself up if your finances don't look the way that they want to. But I will say that the better you get at catching those free falls where your finances are spiraling and going off in a direction that you don't want them to go, the better you are at catching it, at noticing it, and course correcting, the better off you will be in the long run. And the first step to getting your finances back on track is overcoming the resistance that you feel to changing the way that you're spending your money now. So, what is resistance? Resistance is that feeling that comes up for us that makes it difficult for us to change course. It feels easier to do what we've been doing than to do the things that we know that we need to do and the things that we want to do. It feels like a lot of work. It feels heavy. But the better you become at recognizing resistance for what it is, the easier it will be for you to learn how to overcome resistance. So let's talk a little bit about some of the emotions and thoughts that drive that feeling of resistance to making a positive change in our financial lives. So first of all, it's fear, right? Because maybe you spent quite a bit of time not really looking at your finances. You've been spending out of habit, spending on default, spending out of need, but not paying attention to what that really means for the bottom line of your finances. And so there's a certain amount of fear there, like not wanting to look at your finances because you don't want to see what's there, right? So there's that fear. And part of what drives that fear is when you look at your finances, then you're going to actually have to change. You're going to feel that obligation to do something different. So the longer you can resist looking at it and making a new plan, the longer you can put off having to actually make that change. Another thing that can fuel resistance is disappointment. So feeling frustrated at yourself and regret about the choices that you have been making over the past few months, despite having had good reasons for making those choices in the moment. So the longer you put off actually looking at your finances, the longer you can put off having to truly face that disappointment and deal with the emotions that you're feeling around where you are right now financially compared to where you hoped you would be right now. Another source of resistance is frustration that your finances look the way that they do, especially if this is a cycle that you've found yourself in the past. And you thought that that last time would be the last time, but here you are again, finding your finances not looking the way that you wanted it to. Maybe you spent a little bit more than you wanted to. And so there's this feeling of frustration that your finances look this way yet again, right? A little bit of disappointment in yourself because of the choices that you made. Those are some of the thoughts and feelings that fuel resistance. Those are normal. They happen to everyone. So how can you actually start to overcome those feelings of resistance, those feelings that stop you from taking the action that you need to take and that you want to take to pivot your finances? So I've got a couple of tips for you to help with that. The first thing I want you to do is commit to making it easy. Because remember, one of the biggest causes of resistance is that feeling that you're going to have to make big changes and it's going to be hard and life is going to suck and you're going to miss spending the way you were spending. So I want you to commit to making it easy. You already know that you want to make a change, right? You know that there's something about your finances and the way that you've been spending that isn't in alignment. So you have that inner motivation. You have that feeling of wanting things to be different. But part of what is throwing up a roadblock is this feeling that it will be different in a bad way, that it's going to be hard and that it's going to suck. So I want you to just commit to making it easy. Whatever changes you're going to make is going to be easy, it's going to be sustainable, and it's going to come from a place of love and joy, right? And gratitude than from places of negative emotions, right? So when you commit to making it easy, you take a lot of the pressure and the resistance off of making those changes, right? So that's number one. Number two, I want you to just accept the choices that you made without judgment, because so much of the resistance that we feel to getting our finances back on track is really about guilt and remorse, regret, shame, frustration about past choices. But what if we just didn't allow ourselves to do that, right? We didn't allow ourselves to indulge in self-flagellation over past choices, recognizing that that is actually not a great way to change, right? We don't need to shame ourselves into change, right? That's not the way that you create long-lasting positive change in your life, right? So accept the choices that you've made in the past. They're okay. The choices that you made them in the moment for a reason. So don't second guess them. You can learn from them without having to feel bad about them. Third, I want you to normalize imperfection. You do not have to make perfect financial decisions every single time in order to hit your end goal. Like I said from the very beginning, it's actually normal for you to have ebbs and flows in your finances. So months where things go absolutely perfectly and months where life happens and things get out of whack. And so then you have to course correct. So when you normalize like, hey, this is actually a normal part of how I manage my money, then it becomes so much easier for you to just course correct because you're like, oh, okay, we went off a little bit this month. We're going to course correct right now. And again, the better you get at normalizing and course correcting, the faster your course corrections will be and the easier they will be too. And it's sort of like driving where you're always moving the car just a little bit to keep it in the lane, right? Even if your car is on cruise control and your speed is taken care of, you've still got to keep the car in the lane by making tiny adjustments. Now, if you go too close to the line, you've got to make a bigger adjustment to get back in the middle. So it's the same thing with your finances. You're constantly course correcting, kind of pinging back and forth between the outer barriers of your financial life. And so again, the better you get at course correcting, the closer you stay in the middle more of the time. Lastly, I want you to put it in perspective. We have a habit of looking at the things that are happening in our lives as if this is the thing that's going to define everything about our lives. But the truth is, this is just one snapshot in your overall financial trajectory. So when you put this in perspective, and you ask yourself a year from now, 2 years from now, if I just start making different decisions going forward, will I be this obsessed and upset about the choices that I made over the past few months? And stretch it out even more. 10 years from now, will I really be that upset? Right? What are some things that I could do between now and 10 years from now, 5 years from now, for me to get back on track financially? Will it really make that much of a difference? And the answer is going to be no. So when we get out of the habit of catastrophizing, where we make everything mean so much more than it actually does, we take sort of the weight out of the decisions that we have to make. And so that eases resistance. So those are 4 tips to help you break through resistance so that you can get your finances back on track. And so remember, tip number 1 was to make it easy. So now I'm going to give you some simple, easy ways that you can ease yourself into getting your finances back on track. The first thing is to just start making different decisions now. You don't have to deep dive into everything that you did and where you are right now and all of your numbers and create the whole plan. Yes, there will be a time and place for that, but to just get started, to make it as easy as possible for you, just look at the decisions that you're making right now and going forward and start troubleshooting for that. Even if you don't have a clear financial plan in place yet, you do have some idea of the trade-offs of spending money, right? You understand that for any particular problem that you're trying to solve, there are ways to solve it that cost more money and there are ways to solve it that cost less money. So a really easy example of that would be feeding yourself. So one of the more expensive ways to feed yourself is to eat out at every meal. And then so you can make that trade-off if you've been eating out a lot. Well, what are some ways you can start eating out a little bit less? And then you have more money available to do other things, to hit other financial priorities. Next, I want you to get curious about what caused your finances to go off track in the first place. Now, note here, I said get curious. So this is not an invitation for shame or blame or frustration, especially if you're going through these exercises with a partner where you're not automatically able to read each other's mind and give each other the benefit of the doubt. This is just about being curious and open. It's exploring what happened. So the first thing to consider is, did you have a clear plan for your money or was it vague, right? Remember, having a clear plan for your money makes it easier for you to see what worked and what didn't work. Where it's vague, you're kind of defaulting to your habits to do the work for you. And if your habits are not automatically in line with your plan, which most people's aren't, then it's not going to be as easy for you to hit your goals. Next, look for what worked. We all have a tendency to automatically go to the negative to look at what went wrong, but I want you to spend some time looking for what actually went well in your finances over the past few months or year. So if you had a plan, if you had really specific goals, which of those did you hit? How far did you get? What kind of progress did you make? In what areas do your finances look the way that you hoped that they would? If you make it a habit of looking for it, I'm sure that you're going to find areas of your finances where you're actually doing well. And take some time to pat yourself on the back, because those are the areas of your finances where you're already doing well. They're the proof that you can get your habits and your natural spending to align with your overall financial goals, right? So you want to make sure that you are celebrating yourself and celebrating those wins. Next, you want to look at what didn't work. So where did you go off track when it comes to your money plan and why? Where are the biggest areas of opportunity that you can tweak your finances to help your finances get back on track? Now, there are two ways that you can do this. You can look at your actual numbers, which I do recommend because it's going to be the most accurate, right? And the more that you get used to looking at your numbers, the easier it will be for you to break free of the resistance that you might have to regularly checking in on your finances. So when you look at your actual numbers, you can pinpoint the areas of overspending and underspending. You can see where your finances went off track. The other thing you can do just to start to make it as easy as possible is to just start thinking, just brainstorm. Like if you had to guess, if you had to answer this question for me right now, if I were to ask you, okay, what do you think were the reasons why your finances went off track? What are those reasons? Write them down. That's the simplest and easiest place to start. But I do recommend that you look at your actual numbers to see how well your thoughts about where you went off track align with what actually happened that caused you to go off track. Then you want to ask yourself, why? Why did your finances go off track in that way? What were the circumstances that led to that spending? And then when you know that, you can brainstorm actions that you can take that in the future, when that situation comes up again, so that your spending is actually going to be aligning with your overall plan. Or you could do things like adjust your spending plan to account for things that were unexpected, but now having experienced it, you recognize that you want to start planning and preparing for those things going forward. The other thing that you can do, because it's not all about cutting your spending, you can look at your spending and really ask yourself, which are the areas in which you want to be able to spend that way going forward? And that can be a new goal and financial priority that you set for yourself, because you can just decide that you like being able to spend this way. And even though your current financial priorities don't allow you to spend in this way and hit your goals, you can set it as a goal to say, well, I want to be able to do this in the future. And that's something that I've often done in my own finances, where I would have experiences, for example, wanting to go on vacation and wanting to do certain things on vacation and it not fitting in the budget. And so then I know, well, next time I want to make sure that my budget is larger because I want to make sure that I can accommodate these things. And so that is how you slowly improve your finances over time, because you give yourself permission to look at your finances without bias, without negativity, and really just evaluate, stay open, and stay curious so that you can identify where you're doing really well, where the areas of opportunity are, and what you can do in the future to make sure that when things do go off the rails, which they will do, that you have all the tools that you need to get your finances back on track easily. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then you are going to love our money masterclass, How to Afford Anything You Want. In that masterclass, I teach you how to plan your financial life so that you can incorporate more and more of the things that matter to you over time. So head on over to onebighappylife.com/afford anything to sign up for the free class. All right, I will see you next time. Bye.